Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Everyday Miracles podcast. I'm Julie, and I have been so excited to have my guest on today. I knew it back in October 2020 that she was going to come on and she's going to bless you. Miracles that we'll be talking about today. Obviously, healing has been a big topic on my platform, and there's different types of healing too: physical, emotional, spiritual. We're going to talk about that. But today, my guest is Erin Myers out of Nashville, Tennessee, and there's so many things I could say about Erin. She is the founder of Spiral Spine, and she's been a big blessing to my life personally. I had no idea until I didn't have a reformer table and a Pilates for a couple months last year how much I needed it. I really believe this is going to keep me from having surgery. It's been a huge blessing. But the things I want to say about Erin, she has a lot of education. She's written books. She has apps and tools and things for people with not just scoliosis, but chronic pain. So there's three big things as I prayed about what to share. Number one, what I love about Erin is her audacious love of Jesus Christ. You know, as a client coming into the studio, she's so open with her faith, and it's a ministry. It really is a ministry. So I love that right off the bat with her. Number two, sadly, she has personally experienced some heartache and dealt with chronic pain. She was a Radio City Rockette, living the dream, and things kind of took a turn. And I haven't heard that whole story, so I want to hear all about that. But God redirected her path, and she has a new passion. She has a deep empathy for others that are dealing with chronic pain, an intense desire to help people that are hurting and struggling. And she studied so much. Number three, she's so knowledgeable. You guys, I'm not kidding. If you know someone with scoliosis, you have got to share this with them. I have had the privilege of being able to research and try to find every way to manage my pain with a severe scoliosis. And I could list out all the things I've tried. Erin, I'm telling you, she knows more about scoliosis than the doctors I've talked to. I had someone from Prague I met with once over here. That was a God thing that happened in Prague. I'm told that's like the scoliosis capital. They know, they're the experts. And he was a teacher there. And she is the one I would push you to see. So anyway, there's a couple things about Erin. So Erin, welcome to my show.
Hello.
Yes.
So as I was praying about what the Lord wanted me to say today, I first off want to say that my story is not a story of miraculous healing, though I am hopeful that will happen one day. My story is a miraculous story of the Father's unrelenting love for his daughter when she was so lost and flooded with emotion that she felt like she was drowning. So that is the miraculous story that you're going to hear today. So yeah, as Julie said, I'm a former Radio City Rockette. I have had 3 Pilates studios. I specialize in scoliosis, have scoliosis myself. I'm writing my 4th book right now. I've got app workshops, have a studio in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got a husband that treats me like a princess and 2 boys, aged 10 and 12, that are totally all boys. I look over at him, they're probably wrestling on the floor together. So that's a background of, you know, what my bio would say, if you look me up online. So my Jesus story, when I was living in New York between my first and second years dancing with the Radio City Rockettes, I came to Christ at the Brooklyn Tabernacle. And when you come to Christ as an adult, it's super different than when you come to Christ as a child. So I was living a normal life, came to Christ, 180 turn. All of a sudden, I saw just everything so new. And when I was with the Rockettes my first year, I experienced extreme knee pain. Night before opening show, I was in an orthopedic surgeon's office as the manager brought me there because I was in such extreme knee pain. The doctor stayed after his normal hours, and I left an hour later wearing 2 knee braces. I had a script for lidocaine patches, Mobic, physical therapy every day and was to ice my knees in between every show after I danced. And on a 4-day show, that becomes a full-time job. So we had a half hour to half hour. So it means you do a 2-hour show and you have half an hour to slam catering food in your mouth and then take a deep breath. And then you have half-hour bell rings before show starts again. You put your makeup on, you get your wet costumes back on, and you go back on stage. And what I would do is I'd have to go on knee patrol and I'd have ice. And I was living every girl's dream and was living a nightmare all at the same time. And I lived in chronic pain. And when I would leave the stage door, I'd put a hood over my head. I didn't want anybody to see me. It was the beginning of this duality that I have lived for the last almost 20 years of my life, where there is this chronic physical battle of some kind in my body and a chronic emotional, spiritual, mental battle. And that's when it started. Finished the Rockettes. The manager told me, she was like, "You're not strong." I was like, "What do you mean I'm not strong? I just finished dancing with the Radio City Rockette. My body was svelte." She was like, "You have no strength." And she was like, "You need to go do Pilates. You're not coming back next year." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Oh. She was totally right. I had all these big moving muscles and I had no stabilizing muscles. Started doing Pilates and I threw my knee braces away about 8 months later. All medication stopped. And so I was finishing my senior year in college for business and fell in love with Pilates, went through a Pilates teacher training program in New York City. All at the same time came to Christ. So it was a little bit of an explosion, and did one more year with the Radio City Rockettes after that. And no pain, no physical pain. But then the spiritual battle started. As I saw things in the Broadway world that were not of the Lord. And I didn't see that last year. I saw that in a whole new realm. So now I had a new battle to fight. And I knew that was the last time that the Lord wanted me to dance in the Broadway world. So that was the true beginning of the spiritual battle. But if I back up to when I was a child, I always had weird things going on with my body. I had scoliosis diagnosed at age 14. I had skin issues that I cannot even tell you. I mean, so many random things that no one could ever connect dots for. Constipation, at least one extreme bout of exhaustion that no one could figure out what it was. Hypermobility. And everyone was like, "Oh, it's whatever. It's allergies. It's whatever, creams or pills." And we just move on with life. So I had all those repressed emotions. We move on. And I was barely 18 when I moved to New York City 2 weeks before 9/11. And so, Wow. So that was a whole thing. That. Yeah. So that was a whole thing. And very New York mode, you just repress it and you just keep pushing on. And so the repressed emotions just kept piling on and on, one of the most traumatic events in human history, American history. And I was just living through it. And you're like, we just move on. Don't even think about how to deal with things. So fast forward, I wasn't a Christian yet. I was going to college. About 6 months after 9/11 happened was my first panic attack. And I was in a dance studio and I just didn't start feeling good. And I went and sat down, and then about 20 minutes later, someone found me, and I was curled up in the fetal position, shaking, unable to speak, unable to move, called an ambulance. So that was the hospitalization for a panic attack. And I had 2 panic attacks that followed within the next 6 months. And that no idea what any of these were. My parents didn't have any idea. And the only thing that one of the doctors told me was, he was like, here, take some, what is it? Zoloft, I think he gave me. He was like, take Zoloft, and eventually you need to learn to meditate.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. I was like, but I'm not depressed. So that was, it's really scary when your mind has the ability to shut down your body. Mm-hmm. I remember my third attack was, I was outside of my college in New York City, and I was walking up the street, and all of a sudden my mind started turning into a washing machine, and I couldn't move my body anymore. And I slumped against the wall, slid down the wall, and had bags and me flopped on the sidewalk in New York City. And people just walked past me like I was some homeless person, as I'm literally unable to move. And so eventually, this is what led me into the realm of yoga. I wasn't a believer yet. And the Lord led me to this little hole in the wall place up on the Upper West Side in New York. And I don't know if she was a believer. She had a crucifix around her neck. But it was this tiny little yoga place. I literally have no idea how I found it. There's like 2 people that would go and take yoga class here, and we'd move, but she taught me how to meditate. And I was able easily to hook in, and eventually I started seeing things in meditations, and she would help me interpret them. And that was the beginning of, for me, on how to unlock my mind, and how I realized that there was a connection between mind and body. And in America, we think that everything is separated. Mm-hmm. In the Hebrew world, in Jesus's world, they all recognized it as one. It was one. Spirit, body, mind, heart, soul, it was all one. And in our very modern American world, especially with our Western medicine world, it's all separated. Like skin is separate from eyes, or separate from heart, or separate from religion, all one. And that was my first taste with that. So yeah, I fast forward a little bit more, got trained in the Kane School of Core Integration to become a Pilates instructor. And it was the first time that I saw a scoliotic vertebra shift over simply from being able to engage the right muscles. Now, meanwhile, I totally didn't acknowledge that I had scoliosis and maybe should be doing this on myself, but I was able to see it on other people. And so I just kind of stored that away, but I fell in love with Pilates because I couldn't do anything else with my mind when I was doing Pilates. If I wanted to do it correctly, I had to focus on what my body was doing, and my mind was calm. So fast forward, moved to Nashville, opened my first studio, never intended to specialize in scoliosis, and people somehow had heard that I had scoliosis and danced with a Rockette. So they were like, well, obviously you know how to fix kids that have scoliosis. I was like, well, let's give this a try. And I was able to decrease some children's curvature. Life just kind of flew from there. I started reading research and connecting dots. I'm totally a nerd. I love swallowing books whole, and it is a joy of mine to do that. So fast forward many years later to the studio that I'm at now. And I started seeing, my studio is very full of people that have a lot of chronic conditions. Scoliosis is such a hard bodily issue to deal with. And I'm like, girl, if we can handle scoliosis, we can handle anything else. So my studio is full of every body condition known to mankind. So within a 6-month time period at this studio, I was brought to Seoul, South Korea, Boston, a sleepy town, a surfing town in Costa Rica, and had workshops in my studio. So my clients locally in my studio, and then also started working with a lot of people in Europe virtually. So I had this really interesting view of being able to see the same chronic body conditions around the world in all these cultures. And they all had the same repressed emotions. Everyone, whether it's a chill, laid back guy that almost only speaks Spanish who came into the workshop wearing a rash guard and surfing shorts, or it's someone in Korea that is, we don't share any emotion at all. And we have the very Asian repressed emotional mindset and everything in between. And my clients would just weep through sessions. And I'm like, I'm just working on your spine. Like, why can't I even get you on the mat? like it's taking me 45 minutes just to talk to you, to just start shoving you forward, to lay you down on the reformer to do our first exercise. And I saw this in people all around the world. So it opened up my eyes that people who have scoliosis and a lot of chronic conditions, we're not ever just dealing with the body. And oftentimes we can't deal with the body until we deal with or spirit or our heart. So, and through that, I saw very much like what I have gone through, who are unseen, unheard, not listened to, and ignored. And in our world, we call those people orphans. And orphans have to fight for everything that they get. They have to fight for food. They have to fight for shelter. And that's what I realized I was. And that's what I realized every single person who has scoliosis or a chronic condition that can't get fixed by a pill from a doctor is. We have an orphan heart. So if anyone has adopted a child, you know that it's not just as simple as giving them a house and feeding them food. There is so much emotional hurt that has to be dealt with. So the Lord opened my eyes to see that. And I just laid that before the Lord. And I'm like, Lord, I don't know what to do with this. I know how to work with bodies and make spine straighter and read research. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So as I said, I had 10 and 12-year-old boys. During all of this, what I was experiencing in my world of my professional world, my physical body started to fall apart. So I told you what I dealt with when I was a kid, and then with the Rockettes, and then, with the panic attacks and everything. And when I went through the years of being pregnant, my body started to deteriorate in a fast rate. And no one could figure out what was going on. I had an 8-centimeter cyst taken off my right ovary. I had cysts in my breast. I had a nose surgery. I had skin issues. I had halo moles. So I had halos start to develop around all my moles. And then within a year, most of my moles were gone because my halos had eaten them. I had patches of skin that started turning into looking like they were albino. I bled through my entire pregnancy with my youngest son. And this has been about a decade of extreme bouts of exhaustion. When my kids were little, I would have to take a nap when they took a nap. But it was, my husband would come home at 5 and I would do serious handoff. And I'm like, I need to go lay down. I'd be in bed for 14 hours. I bottomed out every Western and Eastern medicine doctor I could get my hands on, every specialist, OBGYN, crazy people, literally everyone. I bottomed out almost every single functional medicine doctor in town. I went to every autoimmune doctor, and they were like, well, your vitamin D level's low. Maybe you should do that and try some B12. And I'm like, dude, there's more. Girl, if I told you the things that I have tried, you would think I was insane. the amount of time, energy, and money. I'm grateful my husband has a wonderful job because I've tried a lot. Pretty much took it upon myself to become a doctor because no one else could figure this out. Eventually, a lot of the specialists that I started seeing hinted very firmly that I was making all of these things up and that I was pretty much self-inducing myself psychosomatically. And eventually I started to believe them, thinking I was crazy because I was seeing the best doctors, and maybe I was crazy. So I started seeing a psychologist, which was such a blessing because hello, repressed emotions from everything that I've ever gone through and everyone who has ignored me, whether you capitalize it or lowercase it, PTSD. And so many, many years later of amazing therapy and realizing who I am, changing Enneagram numbers multiple times as multiple onion layers have pulled off of me, thinking that now I may have come close to figuring these things out, dealing with family of origin junk, which so many of us have. So this last April, the Lord led me to a new functional medicine doctor in town. Took every test known to mankind to all these random labs around the country, pulled me like I was a vampire, sucked me dry of every ounce of blood I had, and diagnosed me with extreme mold toxicity.
Wow.
So mold toxicity happens when you are in an environment where there is water damage in a building, and many people who have mold toxicity have a mutated gene, HDLR, that makes them very susceptible to mold. And when the body has a hard time excreting things out of the body, constipated or whatnot, it stays stuck in them, and then it goes and lodges itself in your fat cells. So the root of my bodily issues and my body falling apart is mold. Yep, it's mold. And so I have gone through and am still in the midst of an extreme detoxification process to pull all the mold out of my fat cells, out of my body. And I had a midline taken out of my arm about a week ago. And when people are like, oh, I'm doing a juice cleanse, I'm like, oh no, use the word cleanse unless you know what a cleanse is. So yes, so my body has been on an extreme journey, and I have a lot of other things that have been stacked on top of my body, on top of mold. And the mold has to be gone first, and then everything else can be dealt with from there. So when I was sure that I would never have a diagnosis. And throughout this time, I came to Christ. In Nashville, I had gone to a church that was an inductive teaching church. It taught Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic, and I learned to study the Bible, and I was so grateful for that. But there was one piece that I was not taught that my heart so needed, and that was the Lord is still able to heal. And one of the pastors at this really wonderful church was the former president of Moody Bible College, and I remember very, very clearly him preaching from the pulpit that the healing of the Lord stopped in the apostolic age. And so throughout all of these years, I sat with the Lord, and I'm like, Lord, I love you. Why is this happening to me? not fully ever receiving the relief from the Lord that deep down I knew he could do, because he's still the same Lord as he was 2,000 years ago. And his believers who could do miracles are still the same believers, do the same God. And so there was this disconnect that I had. And this summer, we'll back up a little bit. Throughout all this time when I was going to this church, I and doctors started calling me crazy. And I started maybe believing them. I started researching avidly about mind-body connection, about the mind being able to heal the body. And I studied so many books and theories on how much the mind can heal the body. Placebo effect, body keeps the score, list goes on and on and on. Mind-body prescription. I could never make it happen. I couldn't heal myself. But now I know it's because I was trying to do it in my human broken world. But I learned a lot through that. This summer, when I finally got a diagnosis after wanting a diagnosis badly for over a decade, the emotions started flying over me. Probably every repressed emotion that I have ever had now that I have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
It started coming out, and it was just like tsunami after tsunami. And luckily I knew how to control myself so I didn't end up in panic attacks, but I would just cry through the panic attacks for hours on end.
Wow.
And so I don't even know how I came onto this, but I started studying Christian healers, Agnes Stanford, Rufus Mosley, Francis McNutt, all these Christians in the 19th century who had been given the gift of healing from the Lord. And I read their stories and I read their biographies on, these people, they just like lived in these spiritual balloons, like high above the world. They had figured out how to just give themselves to the Lord. And they had worked through so many things of their own that they were able to channel the Lord and heal people. And I started reading this. And one day I found the courage to ask the Lord for that blessing. I kid you not, the next day at church, there's a different church I'm going to now. It talked about a freedom prayer. Freedom prayer where you go in, people are with you in the room, they're guiding you, they're praying for you, they're writing down what you're experiencing. And I'm like a crying tsunami mess, and I know I have to sign up for this. I'm like, I just told you I want to heal people, Lord. I'm like, okay, we'll sign up for this. Later for my healing session. And I'm going to let you know what the Lord showed me. But during this month, as I was sitting with the Lord, knowing that something was unlocked because I had just asked the Lord that he would be willing to use me as a vessel to bring pieces of the kingdom of heaven to earth. Just as Isaiah said, before he said, who shall I send? Send me. What happened first? A piece of coal was placed on his lips. Only once he had been purified could the Lord use him. Mm. He may have had a heart to do that before. He's not clean enough to do it. Loved the Lord. was not holy enough in order to do that. So as I was sitting with this in this month, one of the prayers that I had studied and read from John Eldridge came to mind, and I'm going to read it. It's a piece of his intro into his River of Life prayer. And in Ezekiel, in chapter 47, it's described in the river of life was flowing from the throne of God. First, it was ankle deep, then it was knee deep, then it was waist deep. And then it finally it was described as the river that cannot be crossed. And then, of course, in Revelation 21, John sees the river flowing through the New Jerusalem, the city of God, the river of the life of God made available to his people. To make that clear, in John 7, Jesus said that those who believe in him will have rivers of life, rivers of living water flowing from their inmost being. We are meant to receive and drink deeply of the river of life and to use it in this hour as a shield against death. So many times in the last decade, I was sure I was going to die. I was in my 30s and I saw the deterioration of my body happening so fast and no one could figure out why. And there would be days that I would look to my husband weeping and say, I'm not ready to die. And all I wanted was for the Lord to show up. And I know the Lord and I know his presence and I feel the Holy Spirit, but there was something missing. So in this freedom prayer session, and as a note to self, if you do a freedom prayer session, don't wear makeup because you're just going to cry the whole time. Okay. It's going to be a mess. Okay. My entire body weight out, tears on the floor. And they were the best tears that I've ever shed. So I get in there. And through all of my mind-body work, I'm able to get in, shut my eyes, and focus and clear everything out. So I sit there, and there's this woman who's talking to me, and she's just kind of guiding me through things. And I'm quiet, and she's guiding me, and she's like, what do you see? I'm like, it's quiet. It's peaceful. I don't see anything. And she says, you don't see Jesus? I said, no. Totally not knowing that I was supposed to be seeing Jesus right here. And she says to me, I want you to ask Jesus where he is. And I say, Jesus, where are you? And he said, look up. And I looked up and there he was. And she asks me, well, is he like right in front of you? I said, no, he's a ways off. She said, tell me where you are. I said, it's black. And I can't touch him. She said, you're in a pit. All these years, I had no idea that I was sitting in an abyss. No idea. And she said, ask the Lord if he would come down in the pit and be with you. And I asked him, and he said yes. And he came down and he embraced me in the pit. An hour later goes on. I tell him the people that come up. I tell him the issues that come up. We work through everything that what I felt these people had owed me in my life. I asked Jesus if he would take it. And he did. All while sitting in the pit with me. And eventually, the scene magically changed. And I was laying in the river of life. And Jesus was on the side. And I was just floating, free as could be in the river of life, as my Lord just joyously watched me float. And then the scene changed. And then I saw the throne room. And I was before the Lord in rags, prostrate on the floor. And I was an orphan at his feet. And he told me to rise. And he put a gown on me. And he put a crown on my head. And he called me daughter. And I was no longer an orphan. And when your father is the king of the universe, that makes you a princess. And the dichotomy is just amazing because I danced with the Rockettes. I mean, I was living every little girl's dream. We may have even had a costume where there was like a small tiara on our heads. And I had no idea that I was an orphan all those years. And I've followed the Lord for, I don't know, 16 years at this point. And the layers of hurt and pain, of feeling ignored and unseen and unheard from the medical world, and feeling so lonely, and feeling anger and shame and sadness and guilt were so heavy on me that it put me in a pit and made me still feel like an orphan, even though I know the Lord and I love the Lord and he is my Savior. And the lady that was leading me through this said, I don't think I would have had the courage to ask this had she not been leading me through this. She said, ask the Lord why he allowed you to go through all this with your body. So I asked him, I said, Jesus, with my heart pounding in my chest, why did you allow me to go through all of this? And as audibly as I am speaking right now, without any hesitation, he said, to bring you to me. There's no words. There's no words. And the last 15 years, specifically the last 10 years, as I have dealt with so many body issues and have witnessed so much pain in the world, in my professional world, my hard head and prideful spirit would have continued doing things on my own if the Lord had not brought me down. And amazingly, in the pit, I had so much peace, which is kind of scary, that I was quite content living in my anger and sadness and fear and shame and guilt all by myself in a dark pit, feeling like I had the peace of the Lord. The Lord has brought me out of the pit. The love that has flowed over me is almost uncontainable some days.
Oh.
And I am hopefully optimistic and expectant of the things that await my life and what the Lord will do to me and with me and through me. And that's my story, which is still ongoing.
Yes, that is amazing. Making me cry over here. It's just, it kind of answers a question I had just recently. I was, sometimes you're praying, you're like, I'm not leaving here until I hear from you. And sometimes those times are the times you don't hear anything. Mm-hmm. And to hear you say, I let you go through this so that you would come to me. And that's just powerful. got me so emotional. So now you are actually working with people around the world now. I mean, he is doing a big thing through you. Can you share a little bit about like the different, you already mentioned a couple of the cultures that you're working with, and you're able to work with people virtually. So what a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the biggest thing for me that was a shock was when I went over, this was all before COVID, when I was brought over to Seoul. So the night before, I started to teach the workshop that I was brought over to teach. The people who had brought me over brought my husband and I out to dinner. And I was just talking shop with them. And I was like, okay, how many people are here that have scoliosis? Because I like to work hands-on with people. And he said, oh, I tried so hard. No one has scoliosis. I was like, what do you mean? I just flew halfway across the world to come and work with you guys. You have questions about scoliosis. So that night, since it was like in the middle of the day anyways, and no one was sleeping in my hotel room, my husband and I put this huge PowerPoint together because I was sure no one would have anyone to work with that had scoliosis. I was wrong, and so was he. So I get in there and I'm like, okay. Room, tons of people. And I say, I would like someone to come up, speaking through a translator, who has scoliosis. No one's hand. I'm literally waiting for a minute. And I said, you know what? Even if you don't have it, maybe you think you do. Or maybe if you just have a friend or a client that you think might have it, maybe we can pretend that you have scoliosis. And one brave woman raises her hand in the back of the room. Said, okay, come on up. Scoliosis. Okay, yes, this is definitely scoliosis. Okay, go on. 20 minutes later, I need somebody else. Another person has scoliosis. Lunchtime rolls around. I have a line of people wanting to talk to me. I think I have scoliosis. By the end of the day, we have 20 people that have scoliosis. By the end of day 2, we have over 30 people that have scoliosis. And they all knew this going into the workshop. What I like to call as scolie shame. And the shame of not being perfect rules the roost. And especially in an Asian country where you're a dishonor to your family or you're a dishonor to the culture, you will not make perfect children, is very shameful. And that is the same with a lot of Middle Eastern countries where shame is an honor is a big thing. And so through working in Seoul specifically, I became acutely aware that no one was ever going to tell me the full truth about their bodies. It would have to be revealed to me. Or I would have to befriend them enough and humble myself enough to befriend them where they felt like they could start to share their deep, dark secrets that only those who are in a pit with them would know.
Yeah, that was my next question, is especially in these cultures where, and I will speak to what you said. I shared with you just before the interview that I actually took a family member that I love dearly that was struggling for a brain scan after I went to the workshop with you, and they had a discount. So I had my own brain scan at the Amen Clinic in Atlanta, and thinking, oh, I'll tweak my supplements, it'll be great. And I had PTSD, emotional scarring, traumatic things that showed up, I had no idea. So it just supports what you're saying, that there are a lot of layers. So, here you may have people, especially in another country where people don't open up. So, with their emotional issues and historical like traumas. And how do you broach that topic, and how do you help that? How do you get them to admit it? Or maybe they don't even know they have it, like you, and you had the mold too overlapping. You had a lot of things. So
Yeah.
how do you get there?
Yeah. So I'll use one particular woman that I worked with recently. She is Chinese, very broken English. She came over to see me. She lives in America now, and had a surgery years ago in China. I had never seen the surgery. The scar was a really weird place. I saw the x-ray and I did not say to her, but I was like, what kind of experiments did they do on you? I didn't say those words to her, but she had been told weird things from her doctors, whether that is actually what her doctor said, or that is what she interpreted that they said, or remembered from 15 years ago that they said, or heard from a parent that remembered. I don't know. But she said, my doctor told me that I can never raise my arm again. It was scoliosis surgery. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, so much confusion. And my Lord is not a Lord of confusion. So I knew that something was not right here. And I always can tell when there's deep down internal stuff, not like spinal stuff, but like emotion, spiritual stuff, because they start to clam up, or they start to cry, or they start to shake when I start to ask them to start to move. And so I was asking her to do like the most simple, basic movement with her arm. I was like, we're gonna just do this. We're just gonna move, like such little weight, such little range of motion. And the wording that I have learned, that I use with my children, that I use with my clients, what do you feel? That is the sentence I always use. What do you feel? Interestingly, most of the time, they can't name an emotion. They can't say, I feel fear right now, and blah, 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 blah. They don't have that emotional intelligence in order to say that. But they may get a feeling, a color, a something out. And she started to cry, albeit like Asian tears, like nothing's actually going to come out, but I do see a little glistening in the eyes. And she said, I'm just so scared. Oh. Okay. And I said, I'm okay if you're scared. You have been through so much. We're going to do one step at a time. And that's what we do. And then we'll do one tiny movement. And then you see the just wave of fear come over again. And again, like 30 seconds later, I was like, what do you feel? Fear. 30 seconds later, you see another wave just come over. What do you feel? I'm just so scared. So scared. And these waves, it's just like at the beach. It's a wave and it comes, and it's a wave and it comes. When you're standing at the beach and it's a nice sunny day, it's just like a cooling on your feet. But that same wave can also turn into a tsunami.
Yeah.
If something triggered underneath the earth to make a huge wave happen. So I've noticed these waves in different heights come, knowing that something triggered it. Something triggered the wave. I was working with a dear client of mine yesterday, and I've worked with her. Oh my word. I have worked with her every week for almost 5 years. And she has seen psychologists. I'm like, girl, you need to go talk to this person. And we have uncovered so many things. She came in yesterday. She sat down on my jar tonic tower, and we started moving. And I looked in her eyes, and I was like, it's going to be one of those days, isn't it? She was like, I'm not even going to hold back my tears. Oh, she cried through the whole session. And I said, we're going to keep moving because it's locked inside of you. And we just kept going. And I'm like, what started the wave? I saw Rudolph on television.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Let's talk about Rudolph. What did Rudolph trigger? I mean, anything can start the wave happening. A doctor's appointment, Rudolph on television. Someone telling you that you look beautiful. Girl, I was going through my makeup the other day and I totally got triggered because this one particular person would buy me makeup. Oh, I got so angry. I started throwing my makeup in the trash. My husband came in the bathroom and was like, baby, what is going on? I was like, I just got a wave. I don't know what started the wave. Obviously, I need to go talk to Jesus about this wave. So it's amazing. Again, in the Hebrew world, the body, the heart, the soul, the mind, the will, they're all one. They're all one. And this is something this is a new revelation to me. And I would encourage all of you, when one of those waves come and you turn into an ugly monster or your body starts hurting, I'm like, okay, friends, it's one thing. It's one body. It's one heart, mind, soul, and will. What started the wave? And my Lord is the Lord of peace. He's the Prince of Peace. And if you do not have peace right now, your body does not have peace. Your mind does not have peace. Your heart does not have peace. Your soul does not have peace. You need to go have a conversation with Jesus because you might be sitting in the pit. I have been sitting in the pit for a long time. It's amazing. It's amazing. And the Lord is real.
Yeah.
The Lord is real. He is not just dead words in a book. He is live and he is here. And you can look at him and you can speak to him. Sometimes you might need some help getting there. You might be so stuck in a pit that you need some other people's help showing you. But oh, he is so real.
Mm-hmm. So maybe pray about, ask him like what in their situation, what their next step could be, whether it's functional medicine or, a brain scan and those things cost money, I know, but, we need to ask him for our next step to get out of that and process it. And, for me, if people are interested, I have a whole journey I'm on right now. I'm doing some different things, but you have to do the work. It's not just all physical. And it's a process. Hugely important. Everything that you've covered with the emotional piece and the possible traumas, the possible physical, there's so many pieces that you can't really just give advice to everybody. These are 1, 2, 3. Obviously I think the first thing to do would be to pray about it do you agree with that? Pray about what next to take.
And you need to be willing to do what he tells you.
Yeah.
That's hard. That is hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
And what was hard for me personally? I had someone in a studio one time who was doing these releases in my spine. And I'm still learning how all this works, but I know something she did and it wasn't painful, but oh my goodness, it triggered tears. Like there's theories about how you can store pain in your body physically. And I don't understand all of that. All I can say is when she did that and she saw my face, she's like, let it out. Like, and it was like,
totally.
I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. She's like, and it was so hard for me in my pride, like to just let myself cry when I didn't even understand why. So that would be something as a patient, I know how hard that is. You don't want to like come unglued when someone's, there's a pride component. So, but I know it feels good when you let all of that out, whatever it's come from. And I know PTSD, I don't want to throw my parents under the bus. I don't want people to think it's all, there are different things that have happened in my life that could have caused this, seeing traumas in the OR. I had a stalker in college. I had to have a detective and went through some of that. And different things happen in all of our lives. I just want to say that I don't want my people to think my parents were horrible people. And even 2 different people can experience the same thing. And one will have PTSD and one will not. I've heard that too, with just genetic makeup and different things. So there's a lot involved. So, okay, back to how you can help people personally, your studio, your tools. Obviously, I'm going to put a lot of links on here, but you have a great team of people that can help. Can you just say the website for people that are listening, that if they want to reach out to you, they can contact you?
Yeah, spiralspine.com is my website. And I have a staff of about 10 teachers. And most of us work virtually with people all around the world. And between us, we work 7 days a week. Some of them work 2 days, some of us work 5 days, some work the weekends, some not, some nights, some mornings. And the beautiful thing about COVID is now people realize that they can access anyone in the world. And we started having tons of people who realized that the Pilates instructor that they were working with was okay in their hometown, but didn't have the knowledge on how to handle the specific thing. So now my staff and I work with people all over the world on a weekly basis, and we're just their instructors. Some of them have full equipment like you do, Julie. Some of them have just some props at home. Every week I work with someone in California, London, Saudi Arabia, and Florida. They're just my regular clients. And they're my regular clients, just like they're coming into the studio, and I see them every single week. Some other people, they just come in for a little bit of analyzing. They want me to just kind of be a coach and be like, all right, this is what I see. These are my suggestions. I think that you need to do this, this, this. I'm happy. My staff is happy to be as much a part of your team as you want. Or if you want to go find someone in town, that's great. I've got tools to help teach them. And everyone's journey is just really different. Mm-hmm. Some of my clients, it's like 30% therapy and emotional therapy and 70% physical movement. And, it just depends on the day, just like you and I. Some days you can't even access the physical because the emotional's so there. And some people who are like, dude, I'm great. I'm like, fabulous. Let's move. This is such a treat. Yeah. SpiralSpine.com. And I've got just books and apps and workshops and streaming videos for people that are practitioners and people that just want to move.
Yes. And what about people that don't have a Pilates reformer table? Can you do things just with a mat?
Oh yeah, totally. Mat. Okay. And I have a link on my website. I made an Amazon list for people who are like, oh, I just want to buy a few props. And you know what? If you don't have props, then go get your dog toy and then go get a blanket and put it down and go get your water bottle that turns into a 3-pound weight, and we get a belt and we can make do, and it's fine. And we've done that for so many people. But the key is you have to move.
Yeah.
You compare our world that we live in now to the world of Jesus, and they're like, oh, but Jesus didn't do Pilates back then. I'm like, he didn't have a car. Refrigerator. He didn't have a microwave. Okay. They walked miles every day. They sat on the floor and ate dinner. You crisscross your legs and sit there comfortably, because every single man in antiquity would have had to. They use their bodies differently. Yeah. Ladies had to squat to give birth. When was the last time you squatted? These things are just, the world in ancient times was very different from our world in very modern America now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm thrilled. I'm excited for people that are going to find you and be blessed by you. And I'm excited for people to just be open to the idea there could be some emotional components underneath, and those need healing too, and those need to be addressed. And I'm learning that too. So it's exciting. And there's so many new things and new, I'm doing biofeedback, and I have a great therapist who's a Christian, and nice. it's just amazing what they can help you with. And it's kind of intimidating at first, but then you do it and it's like, oh, I feel better. Like it's good. It's awesome. So, okay. So if you can, on your way out, if you can just pray a blessing over our listeners today, people that might be struggling with these issues, whatever type of illness it is, would you be comfortable doing that?
Oh, yes. Are you kidding? Let's do it. Okay. Father, I come to you, and I simply thank you for loving us. I thank you that you have chosen us as your children. And no father wants to withhold anything from their children. Oh my goodness, I just want to bestow blessing after blessing after blessing on your sweet children, Lord. And I ask that you would do this to everyone that is listening here. Lord, I ask you that you would heal every single person that is listening. Whatever that means, Lord. Spiritual, emotional, physical. Lord, you are the Lord of healing. And I know that you can. And I know that you will, Lord. And I sit in the front of your throne, Lord, and simply thank you. I thank you for loving all of us. And I pray that your love would so flow through all of us, just like the river of life. Everything falls away, and all we see is you and your glorious love and peace. Thank you, Lord. And it is in your holy and precious name I will always pray. Amen.
Amen. Wonderful, Erin. This has been so amazing. Thank you so much. I hope you guys check out the website and her, you don't even need an x-ray. She's got an app and you can use that with no radiation. I get enough radiation between the OR and mammograms and everything else. I'm like, I'll take the app. It's wonderful. But lots of tools all attached. So thank you for listening. Be blessed. And if you have a miracle that you'd like to share with me, please reach out to me at everydaymiraclespodcast@gmail.com or everydaymiraclespodcast.com. And thank you so much.